I never thought I'd be telling this story. But here I am, 30 years old, staring at my laptop, finally ready to write it all down. My name is Erica Thompson, and this is the story of how my life changed forever when I was just 13 years old. Back then, we were what you'd call a regular family, just mom, dad, and me, living in a modest little house on Maple Street. Dad worked in construction, mom was a part-time bookkeeper, and while we weren't rich, we were happy, or so I thought. The beginning of the end came on a sunny Tuesday morning. I remember Dad leaving for work like he always did, giving me a quick hug on his way out the door. By noon, everything had changed. There was an accident at the site, a misstep, a fall, and just like that, he was gone. Grief hit us hard, but it hit Mom harder. She stopped being the warm, cheerful woman I'd always known. Instead, she became a shadow of herself, spending hours sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the floral wallpaper. I tried to help. I really did, but I was just a kid. How was I supposed to hold our world together? About 6 months later, things shifted again. One evening, I came home from school to find Mom nervously fidgeting with her coffee cup. "Erica, honey, I need to tell you something," she began, not quite meeting my eyes. "I've met someone. His name is Robert, and he makes me happy again." I froze. Happy? After 6 months? I didn't say anything, just stared at her while the words sank in. Then she added, "He and his daughter Sarah will be moving in with us." "Wait, what?" I finally managed to blurt out. "Moving in. Mom, it's only been 6 months since Dad." "I know," she interrupted, her tone sharper now. "But life goes on, Erica. Robert is a good man, and Sarah needs a stable home. We can be a family again." A family, that's what she called it. But when Robert and 6-year-old Sarah arrived 2 weeks later, it felt more like an invasion. Sarah was this tiny blonde, doll-like girl with big blue eyes, and from the moment she stepped into the house, she had Mom wrapped around her finger. "Isn't she precious?" Mom would gush, watching Sarah play with her dolls or color at the kitchen table. "She just needs so much love and attention." It wasn't long before I realized where all that attention was coming from. Me. Suddenly, I was invisible. At dinner, Robert's mother, Mrs. Henderson, looked at me like I didn't belong. "What a big girl you are," she said, pinching my cheek so hard I thought I'd bruise. Things only got worse from there. Mom, Robert, and Sarah became this perfect little unit, always doing things together. Meanwhile, I got shuffled off to help Mom's friends with their kids, or sent to my room when I wasn't needed. The house didn't feel like home anymore. One night, after another tense dinner where no one spoke to me unless they absolutely had to, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how things had gone so wrong so fast. I didn't want to hate Sarah. She was just a kid after all. But it was hard not to, when every little thing she did seemed to push me further out of my own family. Looking back, that was the moment I realized this wasn't going to blow over. My life had changed, and there was no going back. The first real blow came about a month after Robert and Sarah moved in. It was a Sunday morning, and I was in the kitchen, pouring cereal into a bowl, when Mom walked in with that nervous energy she always had when she was about to drop bad news. "Erica," she started, her voice overly sweet. "I was talking to Robert, and we think it's time to make some changes. You know, to make everyone feel more comfortable." I paused mid-pour. "What kind of changes?" "Well, Sarah's room is quite small, and she's still adjusting. We thought it might be better if she moved into your room. You have more space, and it would help her feel more settled." I stared at her, the cereal box slipping from my hand and hitting the counter with a thud. "You want me to give up my room? For her? She's just a little girl," Mom said, as if that explained everything. "You can move into the smaller room next to the laundry. It'll be cozy." "Cozy?" I felt my face flush. "That room doesn't even have a closet. And what about all my stuff?" "We'll figure it out," she said dismissively. "It's not a big deal, Erica. Don't be so dramatic." Dramatic. That word stung. It wasn't just about the room. It was the fact that no one had even asked me. They'd made the decision, just like that, without considering how I might feel. "Fine," I mumbled, too stunned to argue. I pushed my cereal bowl away, suddenly not hungry. 2 days later, I came home from school to find Sarah's bed already set up in my room, her pink stuffed animals scattered across my desk and shelves. My things had been unceremoniously shoved into the tiny room by the laundry, where the walls were damp, and the single window overlooked the garbage bins. I sat on the edge of the narrow twin bed that now defined my world, and stared at the cracked ceiling. This was my life now, a series of compromises I didn't agree to. The next incident came during dinner a week later. Robert was telling some long, boring story about his work, while Sarah twirled her spaghetti around her fork. I wasn't paying much attention until I heard my name. "Erica," Robert said, his tone sharp. "Are you listening?" "Huh. Sorry, what?" I looked up, realizing everyone was staring at me. I said, he repeated, annoyed. You need to start helping out more around the house. Sarah's too young to do chores, and your mother is busy enough. It's time you pull your weight. Pull my weight? I echoed, incredulous. I already do chores. I clean the bathrooms, do the dishes, and take out the trash. It's not enough. Robert snapped. You're part of this family now, and everyone contributes. Everyone? I glanced at Sarah, who was now giggling as she slurped up a noodle. So, what? I'm supposed to do everything while Sarah just sits around? Don't talk about her like that. Mom's voice was sharp, defensive. She's a child, Erica. You're older. You should know better. I wanted to scream. Instead, I clenched my fists under the table and bit back the words I wanted to say. Fine, I muttered, shoving a forkful of spaghetti into my mouth so I wouldn't say something I'd regret. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, fuming. How had my life turned into this? It felt like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. Sarah could do no wrong. Robert could order me around like I was his maid. And Mom just let it happen. That was the night I made a decision. If they weren't going to treat me like I mattered, I'd find a way to matter to myself. The next morning, I started looking for ways to make money. Dog walking, babysitting, anything I could do to start saving. Because I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to live like this forever. It all came to a head on a Friday evening. I had been out walking dogs all afternoon and came home exhausted, my backpack heavy with books, and my phone buzzing with reminders of assignments due. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was off. Mom, Robert, and Sarah were sitting in the living room, their faces tense, as if waiting for me. Erica, Mom said, her voice tight. We need to talk. The air felt heavy, suffocating. I dropped my backpack by the door. What is it now? Robert leaned forward, clasping his hands together in that fake, concerned way he always did when he wanted to sound authoritative. Your mother and I have been talking, and we've decided it's time to take control of the situation. What situation? I asked, narrowing my eyes. Mom hesitated, her hands trembling as she clutched a piece of paper. We've noticed that you've been earning money, babysitting, dog walking, and other odd jobs. Yeah, I said cautiously, crossing my arms. What about it? Well, Robert cut in, his voice hardening. You're living in our house, eating our food, and using our electricity. It's only fair that you start contributing financially. My stomach dropped. Are you serious? You want me to pay rent? It's not rent, Mom said quickly, as if trying to soften the blow. It's a contribution. Just $300 a month. It's not that much. $300? I sputtered. I'm a kid. I don't even make that much in a month. You'll figure it out, Robert said with a smirk. You're resourceful, aren't you? Always sneaking around and doing things behind our backs. That's not fair, I shot back, my voice rising. I'm saving for college. You know that. Well, maybe if you spent less time worrying about leaving and more time helping this family, we wouldn't have to ask this of you, Robert said coldly. I turned to Mom, desperate for some kind of support. Mom, you can't be okay with this. This isn't fair. But she didn't look at me. She just stared at her lap, her silence cutting deeper than any of Robert's words. That was it. The last straw. I felt something snap inside me. You know what? I said, my voice shaking with anger. Fine. You want my money? You want to treat me like a tenant instead of your daughter? Then I'm done. Done? Mom finally looked up, her eyes wide. I'm leaving, I said firmly, my heart pounding. I'll find somewhere else to live, somewhere I'm actually wanted. Don't be ridiculous, Robert scoffed. Where will you go? You have nothing. I squared my shoulders, meeting his sneer head on. I'll figure it out, just like I've figured everything else out without any of your help. I stormed upstairs, my mind racing. I grabbed my backpack, stuffing it with the essentials, clothes, school documents, and the cash I had managed to save. My hands were trembling, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. As I zipped my bag, Sarah appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Where are you going? She asked, her voice small. Somewhere better, I said, not looking at her. By the time I came back downstairs, Robert was ranting about ungrateful brats, and Mom was crying softly on the couch. I didn't say a word. I just walked past them, opened the door, and stepped into the cool night air. For the first time in years, I felt free. Scared, yes, but free. I spent the night at Jenny's house, her family welcoming me without hesitation. The next morning, her Aunt Maria offered me the apartment above her restaurant. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And as I stood in that tiny studio, looking out the window at the bustling city below, I realized something. I didn't need them. I had me. And for the first time, that was enough. The first call came the morning after I left. I was sitting at the tiny kitchen table in Maria's apartment, a mug of coffee in my hands, staring out the window at the gray morning sky. My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with Mom flashing across it. For a moment, I just stared at it, my stomach nodding. Then, against my better judgment, I answered, "Where are you?" Mom's voice was sharp, a mix of anger and panic. "Do you have any idea how worried I've been?" I took a deep breath. "I'm fine, Mom. I'm staying with Jenny's family." "Jenny's family?" she repeated, incredulous. "You can't just run away and stay with strangers, Erica. You need to come home. Now." "I didn't run away," I said firmly. "I left, and I'm not coming back." There was a long pause, and I could hear her breathing, heavy and uneven. "You're being dramatic," she said finally. "You can't just abandon your family over a little disagreement." "A little disagreement?" I felt my voice rise. "You let Robert treat me like garbage. You stood by while he demanded money from me, and you never once stood up for me." "That's not a disagreement, Mom. That's years of being treated like I don't matter." "That's not true," she said weakly. "You're my daughter." "Then act like it," I interrupted, my voice breaking. "Because all I've ever felt in that house is invisible." Her silence was deafening. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold. "If you walk away now, don't expect us to welcome you back when things get hard. You're making a mistake, Erica." "No," I said quietly. "The mistake would be staying." I hung up before she could say anything else. And just like that, I felt the weight lift off my chest, replaced by a strange mix of sadness and relief. The next few days were a blur of emotions. Jenny and Maria were kind, giving me space when I needed it, and support when I couldn't hold it together anymore. Maria helped me set up a plan, balancing my part-time job at the restaurant with school and saving every penny I could. I didn't hear from Mom again for weeks, but Sarah started posting cryptic messages on social media about selfish people and family betrayal. Robert's ranting posts were less subtle, accusing me of being ungrateful and immature. I ignored them all. One night, Jenny and I were sitting in her room, going over my college application essays. She glanced up from my laptop and said, "Do you ever regret it? Leaving, I mean." I thought about it for a moment. "I miss the idea of family," I admitted. "But not them. Not the way they made me feel. I'm finally living for myself now, and that feels right." In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my new life. I worked long hours at the restaurant, learning everything I could from Maria. I aced my finals and submitted my applications, holding my breath until the acceptance letters started rolling in. The day I moved into my tiny dorm room at State College, I sat on the edge of the bed and took a moment to reflect. I had made it, on my own. Every now and then, I'd catch myself wondering if they missed me, if Mom regretted her choices. But every time that doubt crept in, I reminded myself of the truth. I didn't leave them behind because I wanted to hurt them. I left to save myself, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. It's been 5 years since I left that house. 5 years since I walked away from the family that treated me like a burden, took my voice, and left me fighting to prove I mattered. And now, as I sit at a small cafe near my apartment, sipping a latte, I can't help but marvel at how far I've come. I graduated from State College with honors, earning my degree in business. Maria kept her promise, mentoring me through every step of my journey. And after graduation, I became her business partner alongside Jenny. Together, we expanded the restaurant to 3 locations, each one more successful than the last. On busy weekends, I walk through the dining rooms, greeting guests and watching our team work seamlessly. It's not just a business, it's a family. One I chose, one that chose me back. For the first time, I feel free, truly free. I'm not walking on eggshells, not looking over my shoulder for criticism or condescension. My days are filled with work I love, surrounded by people who respect me, and my nights are my own, quiet, peaceful moments where I can simply be. But it wasn't just success that brought me closure. It was learning to let go of the pain. There was a time when I thought I needed an apology from Mom or validation from Robert to move on, but now I know the truth. I don't need anything from them. Their inability to see my worth isn't my burden to carry. About a year ago, I received an unexpected email from Sarah. She apologized, not in a long, heartfelt letter, but in a short, awkward message that sounded like it took her days to write. She admitted that she never understood what I went through until she grew older and saw how controlling Robert could be. "I'm sorry for being the favorite," she wrote. "I didn't realize what it cost you." I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure what to say. Eventually, I sent a polite reply, thanking her for her words but keeping my distance. I'd moved on, and I wasn't ready to reopen old wounds. Mom, on the other hand, has stayed silent. I hear bits and pieces through mutual acquaintances that she and Robert are still together, that Sarah has moved out and is engaged. I'm glad for her, truly. But I don't dwell on it. I've let that part of my life go. The lesson I've learned from all of this is simple but profound. Self-respect is the foundation of everything. The moment I started valuing myself, I found the strength to walk away from what hurt me and build something better. I found people who appreciated me, created opportunities for myself, and discovered the kind of peace I didn't think was possible. Today, I wake up excited about the life I'm living, and though my journey was painful, I wouldn't change a thing. Every hardship, every tear, every sleepless night, it all brought me here, to a life I'm proud of. As I leave the cafe and step into the warm afternoon sun, I smile, thinking about tonight's plans. Jenny and I are hosting a dinner at our flagship restaurant, celebrating the 5th anniversary of its opening. It'll be a full house, filled with laughter, good food, and the people who matter most. This is my life now. Not perfect, but mine. And that's more than enough. Story 2. Elena here. I've always felt second best. It began when I was born, minutes behind my twin sister Amelia. How differently things turned out for us makes those few minutes seem like a lifetime. Our parents, Sarah and Mark, raised us in a quiet suburb, in a pleasant, middle-class home. Mom was an accomplished lawyer and always dressed well, while Dad had a little software firm. We appeared to be an ordinary family, except for one thing. Amelia was the favorite golden child. It started softly. Amelia got new sneakers, and I got cheap shop knockoffs when we were 6 or 7. She received the American Girl doll. I got generic. The frosting on our birthday cakes was unevenly distributed, with Amelia's side always appearing more generous. These seemingly small items accumulated over time. Amelia got her ears pierced without asking me. I always had a reason to miss her piano lessons. Maybe next year, Elena, they'd say. But next year never came. It's all exposed in childhood images. Amelia shines in her luxury outfits, but I fade in my hand-me-downs. I would lie awake at night, counting the glow-in-the-dark stars on our shared bedroom ceiling, to see how many Amelia had on her side. Universe seemed to favor her. Though material things hurt, there was more. The way they looked and listened to her. They hung on Amelia's every word. When I spoke, their eyes glazed over, and their focus shifted. I prayed school would be different. Teachers would consider us equals, right? We stood in front of our house in matching uniforms the first day. I briefly believed things were changing as Mom took pictures. However, Amelia, honey, tilt your head a little. Perfect, brought back my chest pain. Even in matching ensembles, they made her shine. I didn't find school to be the great equalizer. Yes, Mrs. Johnson, our first grade teacher, sat us alphabetically, Matthews Elena and Matthews Amelia, side by side. The traditional rhythms returned when the final bell rung. Mom's beautiful vehicle arrived, and the routine began. Elena, go straight home and start your homework, she says, scarcely looking at me as I climb out. Then, smiling at Amelia, ready for your piano lesson, sweetheart? And they left me in the dust. I entered our vacant house to startling silence. I studied hard, hoping they'd see me if I obtained excellent grades. At the kitchen table, I solved math problems, learned spelling, and read. After the garage door opened, their voices filled the hallway. Amelia always brags about her accomplishments, with Mom's encouragement. Mom, I got an A+ on my history test, I'd shout one night. She said, that's nice, dear, while helping Amelia unpack her dance suitcase. Amelia, show Dad that new routine you learned today. I hoarded excellent scores, gold stars, and instructor praise in hopes they'd be enough to make my parents' eyes sparkle like Amelia's. Then came the night that dashed hopes. I went to the kitchen for water after finishing my homework at 12. Their sounds rose from the living room. I generally ignored them, but something stopped me. Dad said, sometimes I wonder if we made a mistake, his voice thick with something I couldn't place. Mom asked, what do you mean? Having twins. Amelia would have been enough. She's everything we ever wanted in a daughter. But two, I know what you mean, Mom moaned. Amelia's special. She's destined for great things. But Elena, she's just there. The glass fell from my hand, but I caught it before it broke. I wish I could capture my heart as simply. Everything became evident then. Years of attempting to win their love and hope for change were fruitless. I wasn't wanted. They never did. I was the undesired twin, the extra they didn't want. Something changed me that night. A calm defiance grew. I stopped wanting their praise and attention. I focused on my academics, and something strange happened. Without the pressure to please them, my thoughts was clearer. My already strong grades improved. Excellent analysis, Elena, my English instructor, Mr. Henderson, would exclaim, holding up my Shakespeare essay. Amelia's pencil tapped aggressively against her desk next to me, expressing her frustration. Similar events occurred in math, history, and science classes. Amelia raged when teachers commended my efforts. It culminated in chemistry, when Mrs. Rodriguez requested me to tutor. I heard Amelia say downstairs that night, "Mom, the teachers are mean to me. They always praise Elena and make me look bad. They're doing it on purpose." Mom marched into school the next day, fancy handbag swinging, heels clicking on linoleum. She marched into the principal's office while I observed from the corridor. "I want to know why your teachers are discriminating against my daughter," asked. Thank goodness Mrs. Chen stayed cool. "Mrs. Matthews, let me show you something." She stacked our progress reports. "Here are both girls' records. Elena consistently scores in the top percentile in all subjects. Amelia's grades are—" Mom asked, "Are you suggesting my Amelia isn't smart?" "Not at all. I'm merely pointing out that Elena's academic achievements are—" "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're all biased against Amelia." No proof convinced her. She told Dad that the teachers were prejudiced against their lovely Amelia when she got home that day. By 16, I was tired of asking for pocket money and seeing Amelia get a blank check for existing. I applied to work at the Daily Grind, a nice coffee shop some blocks from home. It wasn't flashy, but I loved my liberty. My coworkers appreciated me, which was unusual. Amelia wouldn't let me win even this minor victory. "Oh my God, you're actually going to be a waitress?" She scowled as I put on my uniform one morning. "That's so common. Mom, can you believe Elena's serving food?" Mom disapproves, passing Amelia a $100 for her shopping needs. Years ago, Mom had yelled, "I don't want anything to do with you anymore. You're embarrassing with your tiny house and budget clothes. I've moved up in the world." During a heated phone conversation with her parents, my grandparents, they weren't good enough for her new lifestyle, so I never met them. I sneaked into Mom's home office that evening as Mom and Amelia shopped again. I noticed it under D for Do Not Contact in her address book, an older town address. I boarded the bus to a tiny blue house with a well-kept garden the next day instead of my shift. Walking up the path, my heart raced. I tried, despite not knowing what to expect. Hand raised to knock. The door opened to see an older couple. The male had wire-rimmed glasses, and the woman had gray hair in a bun. I spoke after they looked confused. "Hi, I'm Elena Matthews. I think you're my grandparents." Their jaws dropped. "Oh my God, Frank, it's really her," Grandmother cried, reaching for her mouth. I was invited in and sat in their living room, sipping tea from fine porcelain cups. Grandma said, "You look like your mother did at your age," and I knew. Many visits followed that first. Instead of telling my parents I was working extra shifts, I spent hours with my grandparents bringing them coffee shop pastries. They listened well and cared about my life, studies, and aspirations. The first time I felt seen, graduation followed. A traditional Matthews family event, Amelia, was the focus. My parents scarcely clapped when I was named valedictorian. When Amelia crossed the stage, everyone cheered like she'd won an Olympic medal. They surprised me with, "Girls, we have exciting news," Mom declared during breakfast, virtually dancing in her seat. "We're celebrating graduation with a trip to Hawaii." Suddenly, my heart lifted. "Perhaps, despite all," Mom said, "Honey," with feigned sorrow, "we only got 3 tickets. For us and Amelia. You understand, right? Someone needs to watch the house, and you have your job at the cafe." Amelia smirked without effort. "Don't worry, sis. I'll send you lots of pictures of me living my best life on the beach." The next morning, I observed them load their pricey bags into the taxi from the front door. Amelia turned and waved enthusiastically. "I'll make sure to send you beautiful photos from Hawaii. You can look at them between serving tables." I called my grandparents with shaky hands after the taxi left. My repressed tears eventually came out. I choked out, "They went to Hawaii without me. They just left me here like I'm nothing." "Oh, sweetheart," Grandma said softly but firmly. "Come over right now. We'll have our own graduation celebration." While wiping tears, I drove to their house. I saw a strange sight as I came onto their street. A brand new Mercedes C-Class automobile, shining in the summer light in their driveway. It appeared outrageous next to their modest abode. Walking to the porch, I inquired, "Whose car is that?" Grandpa held up keys with twinkled eyes. "Yours." "Happy graduation, Elena." I stood mouth agape. "What? But how?" "Sit down, dear." Grandma patted the porch swing. "We have something to tell you." They said they spent their savings in IT startups after Mom left. Their investments had paid out well, but they kept living simply. Grandpa shook his head. "Your mother left us because she felt we were too poor, too beneath her. The irony is, we're probably wealthier than she is now. We just don't feel the need to show it off. We've been waiting for the right moment to help you," she said, and this seemed perfect. Their kindness and compassion overtook me as I hugged them. They took me inside to a lovely graduation lunch. They placed a "Congratulations Graduate" banner over the dining room table and used their best china. They asked about my college intentions over homemade lasagna and garlic toast. Actually, I remarked proudly, I got accepted to Princeton with a full academic scholarship. I start in the fall. Unlike my parents' chilly response, their faces brightened up with joy. Grandmother exclaimed, "That's wonderful. But what about housing? The scholarship covers that. I was planning to live in the dorms." "Nonsense," Grandpa said. "We'll get you a nice apartment near campus, something safe and comfortable where you can focus on your studies." Suddenly, my phone buzzed. Amelia captioned a Hawaiian beach photo. "Wish you were here. Utso." The message, my grandparents' faces, and my new car keys on my plate caught my attention. First time I didn't feel like the inferior twin. 2 weeks passed slowly. I worked at the cafe, visited my grandparents, and studied for college. I received notifications every night of Amelia posing on beaches, eating at fancy restaurants, and reclining by infinity pools. Each photo had progressively annoying captions. "Living my best life while someone serves coffee. This is what success looks like." Some people vacation in Hawaii, others just dream about it. Their return day arrived. I pretended to read in the living room while looking out the window. The taxi arrived, and I smiled as I saw their delayed reactions. Mom saw it first. A sudden stop caused Amelia to walk into her, dropping her fancy purse on the concrete driveway. Dad almost fell down while carrying their costly matching baggage. The open window carried Mom's shrill, high-pitched voice. "What is that?" Her manicured finger trembled as she pointed at the Mercedes, as if it could bite her. "Is that a new C-Class?" Dad hesitated, his jaw hanging slack. "The latest model." I enjoyed their confusion as I walked to the front door slowly. I saw their tans fade with each stride. They stared at me like a ghost when I entered the porch. Dad asked, "Whose car is that?" His face hot from the Hawaiian sun and amazement. I spun the keys around my finger like Amelia did, with her fancy purse straps. "Mine." I heard hesitation in Amelia's bark of laughter. "Yeah, right. Like you could afford that on your waitress salary. What did you do? Steal it? Rob the cafe? Or are you just parking it for some rich customer?" "Actually," I answered, savoring each syllable like the pricey chocolates they'd never shared. "It was a graduation gift from Grandma and Grandpa." Mom's face lost color so fast I thought she'd faint. "What? You know your parents? The ones you were too embarrassed to talk to because they were too poor? Those grandparents?" Dad turned to Mom so fast I feared he got whiplash. "Linda, call your parents right now," he said with a restaurant-ordering tone. Mom shook her hand as she brought out her phone, her French manicure shining. She didn't say hello when Grandma answered, accidentally placing the phone on speaker. "Where did you get the money for that car?" she shouted in our front yard. I heard Grandma's calm, slightly amused voice over the phone. "Oh, hello to you too, dear. Enjoying your expensive vacation? I saw all the lovely photos Amelia posted. The Royal Hawaiian Hotel looks lovely this time of year." "Don't change the subject." "How could you afford to buy Elena a Mercedes?" "Well, sweetheart," Grandma said with joy, "it seems you underestimated us. Those embarrassing parents you were so ashamed of, we're quite comfortable now. More than comfortable, actually. We're rich." Mom's speech became syrupy sweet, and her demeanor altered instantaneously. "Mom, I've been thinking, maybe it's time we put the past behind us. Family is so important after all." "Is it?" Grandma said coolly. "Of course. And speaking of family," Mom glanced at Amelia, ready to groom. "You have another granddaughter who would love to get to know you. She could really use a nice car too. Maybe even something a little more special?" Speaker crackled Grandpa's laugh. "You mean the granddaughter you just took to Hawaii while leaving Elena alone?" "That granddaughter?" Mom flushed. Look, as grandparents, you should treat the girls equally. They're the same age after all." "It's only fair they get the same gifts," Grandma snapped. "Equally? That's rich coming from you, Linda. Parents should love their children equally too, but that hasn't been the case in your household, has it?" The call ended. Mom gazed at her phone before turning to me, her face hardening. "Elena, you need to give that car to your sister." "Excuse me?" I couldn't believe it. Dad spoke out. "Amelia needs a good car for college. She got accepted to State University. She needs reliable transportation. You're just working at that cafe. You don't need anything this fancy." Amelia was approaching the Mercedes with hand extended. "Give me the keys, sis. You know I'll look better driving it anyway." A laugh. I couldn't resist. The arrogance was overwhelming. "This is my car," I insisted, "and I'm not giving it away." Dad stepped forward, furious. "If you don't give that car to your sister right now, you can get out of this house." Funny you should say that. I opened the Mercedes trunk to see my suitcases and cartons. I've been ready to leave for days. They gaped as I held up an envelope from my purse. "Oh, and by the way, I won't be serving coffee much longer. I got accepted to Princeton on a full scholarship. Amelia's shriek was roughly 3 blocks away. Mom stumbled backward like I smacked her. Dad stood there, opening and closing his jaws like a fish out of water. My new leather seats creaked as I got inside my car. Through the window, I saw their astonished expressions as their beautiful family illusion crumbled. I was happiest in my grandparents' place during the last weeks of summer. Mornings began with Grandma's coffee and Grandpa singing as he read the newspaper. No shying, fighting for attention, or feeling like a shadow. Just peace. Princeton relocation was bittersweet. I hugged my grandparents' farewell, promised to call daily, and drove away in my Mercedes with everything I possessed. Driving to New Jersey seemed like leaving my old life for a new one. My grandparents found me a lovely apartment 10 minutes from university. Nothing fancy, but nicer than a dorm room. Hardwood floors, huge windows, and a little balcony for studying. I objected, but they paid rent. Still wanting independence, I worked part-time at a neighborhood coffee shop. I saw the irony, serving coffee by choice rather than necessity. My coworkers were largely students, and I made actual friends for the first time. Grandma called on a Sunday afternoon a month into the semester with exciting news. "Your parents showed up at our door yesterday," stated. My heart jumped. What did they want? Oh, the usual. Linda was all smiles and fake apologies, asking about our financial situation and hinting about Amelia's upcoming birthday. Your father kept looking around the house, probably trying to guess our net worth. What did you tell them? On the line, Grandpa spoke. We told them that we'd already decided what to do with our money. It's all going to you. Their faces sprang to mind. How did they take that? Let's just say Linda's smile wasn't so genuine after that. Grandma laughed. We asked them not to come back. I blocked their numbers and social media profiles that night. Also Amelia's. I expected immediate protestations of love and sorrow and offers to start over as a family. I no longer needed their family. As I sit in my constitutional law class, taking notes and loving the complexity, I sometimes think about that small child who prayed for her parents' love. I wish I could tell her to find better. Respect, support, and self-expression, not simply love. My phone buzzes discreetly in my pocket, probably my study group confirming our library meeting later. Jake, my psychology class's cute guy who keeps asking for coffee, may be it. Not at my cafe, thankfully. Life is so typical. No drama, comparisons, or feeling inadequate. Just me, my studies, my pals, and a bright future ahead.